Welcome. In this presentation, I want us to talk about success stories, why they are important, and why they are a very important tool in communicating impact in a project or in a programming. My name is Josephat, Monitoring, Evaluation, Accountability, and Learning Specialist. So, success stories. So, what is a success story? A success story is a narrative that shows how a project participant or a group of participants have been impacted by an intervention, a project, or a program. So, a success story is a story that singles out from many participants, one participant or a group of participants who have been impacted, and their impact stands out in most cases, and it's able to communicate or to complement the information that we include in our narrative report. Remember, a narrative report captures the impact of a project to the target group or to the target participants. But here we are able to give a narrative of a specific participant or a specific group, so that we can showcase how the intervention have been able to impact the lives of these individuals, and it helps us in complementing what we include in our narrative report. So why do we write success stories? One, we write a success story to showcase the impact. Remember, we in most of the information that we include in our narrative report, we have a lot of numbers, we have a lot of quantitative information, but here we are able to give a qualitative insight that shows the impact and can complement the impact, or can complement what the numbers are saying. So one, we showcase the impact. The next thing is that we celebrate the effort. Remember, when we write a success story, we are able to highlight the contribution of the participant, the contribution of the partner, the contribution of the project, and every person who was involved in the success. So we are able to celebrate the effort and show the effort of every individual. It can be resilience, it can be innovation, which directly contributed to the impact. That thing is that we develop trust. Remember, when we give story, complementing the quantitative data results that we have given in our narrative report, we are able to show the real information, the real change to various stakeholders. It can be the partners, it can be the donors, and also it can be the participants. They are able to single out that impact in terms of information, or what we call the qualitative information that we give. It also enhances learning, because the success stories help us to know what has worked and what has not worked. And there in the process, we are able to be inspired. Maybe if you are the programmer of a project, you can be able to know, if I follow this path, then I'm going to get these results. So you are going to identify which path to follow to get to a certain result. Even if it cannot be definitive, the results are, you are able to know that this has higher chances of working. So it can inspire future programming. So what are the components of a good success story? Remember, a success story is not just a story. It's a story that you can be able to flow with it and be able to get the picture, to get the insight, to get the information that will help you understand how an impact was achieved. So, as any other form of the story, it has to be a story that you can visualize all the events that occurred, and be able to connect it to the results that will be communicated in that story. So the first thing that you need to have is a title that is very engaging. So the selection of the title will help us, or help the reader or the recipient of the story know what exactly is the story, the success story talking about, or the impact story, in other words. what is it talking about? So it's good to include the words like resilience. It's good to include those words that are eye-catching and captivating, so that even before you start reading, you already know this is a good story. You can tell from the title that this story sounds to be a very well packaged, or a story that has an impact. So the next thing that you need to have after the title is the introduction. An introduction is where now you introduce the scene and the subject and the information, the basic information, and you connect all the scenes so that we can be able to see what does the story, or the body of the story, what does it entail. Then from there, when you have the picture of the scene given in the introduction, you come and talk about the situation before the intervention. You give us the picture of how was the situation, because remember, our success story shows the impact. So we want to see where were we before the intervention, or before the impact that we are going to see in the story. So what was the situation before? How was the farm before, for example? How was the participant before the intervention? So you try to bring that image to the reader. Then from there you talk about the intervention. So what did the project do? What did the partner do? What was the activity that was introduced to change the situation that was there before? So you talk about the intervention, you bring the information about the intervention. It was an introduction of a certain farming technology. It was an introduction of certain economic activity. It was an introduction of certain skills, for example. So what was done? Then from there, when you talk about the intervention, you talk about the results. So what was achieved? So remember, the results should be smart. They should be specific. They should be measurable. They should be achievable. They should be even time bound. And those results, when you communicate them, they should connect with the story and the information that you gave before. Then there is also the photos or video to uh to showcase, or to serve as an evidence of the real the story. Remember, photos should be attached to this story, so that they can showcase the flow of the information. So it's good also to have photos that can communicate the ideas that are put in the story, in a way that when a reader looks at or the consumer of the story reads the story, they can be able to also look at the photo and see this was the situation before, this was the intervention, this was the process, this is what was being happening. Every activity is connected to the story. And then lastly, there is the impact or the results, and of course that shows that the situation before and the situation after is very different, because the intervention had brought an impact. Then there is also the closing thoughts, which reflects the project goal. So it is tied to the project goal. What was the goal of the project? The intervention, what was the aim of whatever was being introduced? If you wanted to enhance, for example, food security, so if that was the goal, then was the participant whom the story is written about able to get to be food secure? If it was to enhance their economic situation, was the participant able to improve their uh, economy, or they were able to have an improved livelihood? So we have to see a reflection tied to the project goal, because the story should be connected to the goal or to the intervention, so that it can be an impact story. So from there, we talk about the structure of a good success story. So how does a good success story look like? Or what is that what is the criteria of writing a good success story. So how do you write a good success story? In other words, one, this is the first requirement is you have to focus on a specific individual or an organized group. So if you're writing a story about an individual, if you're writing a story maybe about as a given farmer, a given woman, they have a name, so focus on that person. So the story should be exclusively about that person. If you're writing a story about an organized group, then focus on that group. So in this case, it's where you're writing a story about a group that involves various people, but it has a name. So this, it's not about calling or bringing a number of people and writing their story, but this is an organized group. Maybe it's an organized group for saving. It's an organized group for example, we talk about Village Savings and Loans Association. It's a group that maybe participants come and save and access credit. So focus on that specific individual or an organized group. So then it's also good, as we mentioned earlier, to highlight the situation before. Remember, we are creating a picture of how the change occurred. So highlight the situation before, then from there highlight the change and its process. So here is where you talk about the activities, the input of every stakeholder. It can be the individual, the participant, it can be the group, and also it can be the partner. So highlight the change and the contribution of every person who was involved in achieving the success. Then the next thing you have to do is highlight the situation after. Remember, when you take us through the process of change, then you have to show us what was the change achieved, and it was achieved. How was the situation? How was the change? So we can see the change from your narrative, that this was the change that was achieved, and yeah, we can compare the change or the situation after with the situation before, and we can tell this change was achieved. Then another important aspect is to humanize the story. Remember, the reader is reading a story and is able to feel the story and experience or walk with you in the process of the story. So it's good to humanize the story. How do we do that? We humanize the story by highlighting the experiences, such as the challenges, attaching the emotions to that story if need be, showing perseverance, showing resilience, showing every emotion or every human element that can be well accommodated in the story. A disclaimer here: don't overdo this, because when you overdo it, then it becomes exaggerated. But when you humanize the story, make sure that you capture those feelings, those emotions that need to be captured to show how this is a, a, a humanized story, to say. Then include a direct quote. Remember, when you are collecting, we are going to see how we collect an impact or a success story. When you are collecting an impact story, you get information from the participant or from the group, and the group has the leadership or the person who is a spokesperson in that case. So include a direct quote, because when you include a direct quote, it shows authenticity of the story. And also, when we talked about humanizing the story, even direct quote shows the story is attached to a certain individual. So it's good to ensure that you use a direct quote for authenticity. Don't just explain what happened. Don't just write it in a reported speech. Ensure that there is a direct speech that can be highlighted to show that the story, the subject of the story, was the real person who was giving all these accounts that are recorded in the success story. Another thing in writing a success story, it's not your chance to shine with your big words, gigantic words, or to show how you are a language guru. So you have to avoid the use of jargons. Use a simple language that if you share the story to the participant, if you share the story to partners, if you share the story to your donor, if you share the story to your colleagues, if you share the story to anybody, they can be able to comprehend the information that is included in that story. Don't use jargons, don't use big words. We are not here to shine, we are here to show an impact. Also, use a descriptive language. A descriptive language is a language that is able to paint a picture to the reader, such that the reader can be able to see every account and visualize it in their mind and see that this happened, this is the process. Even without seeing a picture, they can be able to or seeing the photos that you took, they can be able to create that picture in their mind and flow with the story. So the good thing is to have a descriptive language and a good flow of events, because when you mix the events, the chances are there will be a disconnect, and also the reader might not be able to get the story as it's supposed to be. Then this we mentioned earlier, connect the story with the project goal. So remember, we have the goal of the project. What did the project want to achieve? So connect that story with the project goal. So on this left, this on the right, on this right end, we have the project, how it's just a representation of how we write the success story. We have the project intervention, which impacts the situation before, and after the intervention it also impacts the situation after. So the project intervention is very key in writing a success story. So we go to how do we collect a success story information, because this is not creative writing. These are writing that has its source. It's very real. So you have to collect the information, and you have to collect the information that is going to create the story that is real, such that if a person want to come and confirm that story, they can confirm that the flow of the story is the same as what is in the real, in the in the real life situation. So first of all, you have to identify the participant. So the participant that we identify is the one who has a notable change as a result of an intervention. So that's why I said most of the times we write a success story of an individual who has stood out or among the best in a certain intervention. Then the next thing after identifying the participant is to visit the participant at the site of the intervention. So where was the activity happening? Remember, we talked about the situation before. That situation must be somewhere, and the participant is also there. So you go to the point of intervention, the site of intervention. So where is that person? If it is, for example, in agriculture, where is the farm? So that's where we get we visit. So you don't call the participant to your beautiful office and start asking questions. You go there and collect the information. Remember, we say that this information need to be supported with videos or even pictures. Then from there you conduct an interview, and in this case, there are two things to consider. One, you have to use an open-ended question. It's very recommended unless stated otherwise, because it gives the participant a room to express themselves and you can be able to get a lot of information. Two, even if the process is very formal in your case, always try to be a bit informal, so that you can be able to cool the environment and make the participant comfortable to express their emotions that we need to capture, their feelings, and they can freely give the information. So just make it as informal to the best level that you can. Of course, you have to moderate, but make it as open, as informal, as free as you can. Ensure key information is answered in the process. You are the moderator of the discussion as the person who is collecting the information. So ensure that the key information is given. So if you have to ask a question, just ask. If you have to clarify, then do that, because that information is very important. And when we talk about the key information, what do we include? We have some of the examples. One of the information that we need is the personal details or personal information. That can include the name, the gender, the age, and the location. Then the another important information is the situation before the intervention. So how was the situation before? Even if you are there maybe during the intervention, you have to roll back to get to how the situation was, so that the story can flow from the situation before. Then information or another information that you need is the intervention effect to change and the situation. Let the participant express how the the inputs or the activities that are connected to the intervention contributed to the change that is being seen. And then also after the intervention effect to the change, we have the situation after the intervention. So how was the situation? How is the situation? What is the impact? Here is what we talk about the impact. Then the last but not the least is how does the impact or the situation after have affected the participants or the subject's life, the family, or the community. You have to connect this impact to their life, to their family, or to the community, and it can be either or it can be all of them depending on the context. So it's good to have this information among other information that may be helpful to the writing of this success story. Then you collect supportive evidence. Can be one quantitative, such as in numbers, such as the yields, the income. So yields will come where there is an agricultural intervention. Income will be very helpful when there is an economic intervention. So that information, it's an individual information, very important. So it can be quantitative, and also you have to remember to take photos and videos. So you can use either a photo, or you can use a video, or you can use both depending on the context. Then verify the information for accuracy. So remember, you are writing a story, but you have to verify that whatever you have captured in the discussion or in the interview or during the interaction, it's the accurate information that is specifically for that individual, or in a case where it's for the group. Just verify the information, especially the quantitative information, and any information that you might not have been sure when maybe taking notes. Then obtain the consent. Remember, if you are collecting this information, there is a bit of a lot of personal information, not even a bit, and there is also the photos and videos. So you can obtain consent, one verbally through requesting the participant to uh, give you the information, or you can have a data consent form which you can use and request the participant to sign. So depending on whichever your organization uses, it's good to obtain the consent. Then we go to the template. How does a success story look like? So this is just a template of all what we have discussed. Now, when you are writing the success story, it's good to cross check with this template and see, did I include all the information that is required? One, you need to have a background information. It includes the personal details, the situation before, and the challenges. Then you talk about the intervention. What did the project do? Which support did the project offer? What was the activity that was done to bring the change that we are talking about in this story? Then there is also highlighting the transformation. Uh, what changed from the intervention? Here is what we talk about the situation after. You can have the quantitative and the qualitative outcomes all highlighted in the transformation part. So ensure that your story has captured in all the information that talks about transformation. Then there is the personal testimonials. These are just direct quotes on the impact by the subject. The subject is talking about the direct change, or directly about the change that was brought about by the intervention. Then the future goal. Remember, you are not just collecting the story and telling the participant to go back to the situation before. They have to dream beyond where they are to be better. So a sustainable goal would be very helpful to show that since the participant have felt the impact and have seen the results, and through the experiences or the journey that he or she have walked, then they have future plans, and this shows that the change is not it's not limited with time or with your program or with your project. It's going to be sustainable. Then there is also the photos or visuals that we use to support the information that we give. So generally, that's how we write a success story, and it's open to any other adjustment that can make it better. So we are not limited to that, but it's good to have that information in your success story. So thank you so much. Thank you for following. I hope this video was helpful. And I know if you have a question, you can comment or reach out to me in whichever the platform that you get this video. So thank you. Have a nice time. God bless you.